and I guess going into, content creation, I know, some people, myself included, and I'm sure Kyle as well, we there are points where you get frustrated with lack of growth, or, not seeing the results that you'd like to see. And I know specifically, like in recent time, I've noticed that myself with TikTok, because, in our first podcast, we had mentioned, or, conversed about journaling and consistency. And in that podcast, I was probably 25-ish days deep in journaling, and mentioned my experience at that point. But at this point, what you're seeing, I'm 80 days deep in journaling, and just, having daily tasks that I need to check off and make sure I get them checked off, because if I say I'm going to check them off and never actually do, then I'm not helping anybody, especially not myself. So, with that being said, going to frustration, I've been posting on TikTok for 80 days, 3 videos a day without failure. Like, I've been on my grind for sure. And, the numbers aren't where I'd like them to be, and it's just one of those things where you have to keep your head up and stay motivated. But when you don't feel like you're motivated, that's where discipline kicks in. When you lack motivation, you have to be disciplined enough to keep going. If you really want to achieve something bad, then you're going to do whatever it takes to make that happen, right? So you have to make sure you keep your head up. One thing that I kind of tell myself a lot is, if you're going through hell, just keep going, right? If you're going through the worst time in your life, you're pretty down bad, right? And I've been there. We've all been there. But why not keep going? If you're already going through it, keep pushing. The light is at the other side of the tunnel for sure. And it might be super hard to realize that and understand that that's a possibility. But the reality is, it's there, and you just have to keep working. You have to keep working, keep your head down, and just keep pushing towards that greater good, right? So that's my experience with, being frustrated. It's tricky. It sucks realistically. But, it's also just made me feel more motivated, and it gets my mind going, right? I'm trying to be as innovative as possible with a clothing brand, because I know, at least from my experience, again, how many clothing brands do you know of? Someone might be crazy to even want to pursue a clothing brand at this point, but when you're passionate and you have an idea of what can be possible, you just have to keep pushing, and the results will come if you really, really work towards it. And I can guarantee you that in 2023, this, podcast, this brand will be in a significantly better place, a place where I probably can't even imagine. Just because I know how hard I'm going to go on all platforms and just in every aspect of life. So I know maybe you want to talk about some frustrations you've had with growing your own businesses. For sure. And
a lot of them.
Hey, just interrupting this video to let you know that this video is sponsored by absolutely nobody. Okay, so that's why I took it upon myself to sponsor it by Poseidon's Workshop. Okay, so if you want a discount code to my clothing brand, it's actually super sick. You should definitely check it out. You can use code Poseidon in all capitals. That's Poseidon for 15% off. So make sure you check that out. And yeah, let's get back to the video. Yeah,
since we're talking so much about content, there's been a lot of periods outside of content, but I guess I'll focus a little bit more on that, because I've had a YouTube channel for, honestly, probably over 3 years now.
Yeah. Which
is crazy to say.
Shout it out.
It might even be 4 years.
Okay.
I'm trying to think, actually, but it's ecommerce_Kyle. Well, that's my Instagram. My YouTube channel, you can look up Kyle Russell, 2 S's, 2 L's, e-commerce, and I'll rank, or you could just, look up e-commerce Kyle and I'll rank. I think my channel might have been switched to just Kyle Russell. But yeah, I think my first couple of videos I actually filmed when I was in college.
Okay.
And the last time I was in college was, I think, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
Yeah, about 4 years ago. So my first couple of videos I uploaded would have been 4 years ago, which is insane to think about. And in the first year, I think I maybe got up to 700, 800 subscribers. It took at least 2 years to get to 1,000. And then the third year,
no shorts back then, right?
No shorts, no short form content. And then and this was all probably with I want to say maybe 30 or 40 videos.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
yeah.
and so I after 2 years, I finally passed the 1,000 mark, and I think I got monetized around then as well. I maybe grew to like 1,500 subscribers, and I finally got monetization. I was making like $50 a month. So,
Bang.
But then that year that I got a little bit more consistent with it, I uploaded maybe like once a week or every other week for a couple of months straight. I think I grew from like 1,000 to like 5,000. And so it's like, you have to go through those periods of hell in order to figure out what's working, what isn't, test a lot of shit. And it snowballs. It's like the work that you do today, it might not show itself tomorrow, but it's probably going to show a little bit of itself in 90 days. Yep. And so imagine how much it's going to show in 900 days, right? So you just kind of have to stick it through. But yeah, that's 4 years in the making. I'm now finally getting back into it, and I'm expanding the content a little bit from just e-commerce to business in general, because, I think there's so much more to e-commerce than just e-commerce. There's so many other business skills that you learn and that I'm able to share. But there's a lot more to it than just business. There's having, the personal life balance, the work-life balance, and understanding, how to build teams, how to create relationships, how to stick it through when you're in tough times within the businesses, things like that. So definitely going to be branching out a little bit, but I'm getting back into that. I already have a video film that I had some technical issues that I got to refilm, but that's a whole story in of itself. But little things like that, there's challenges.
Yeah.
No matter how successful of businesses I ran, how many failures I've experienced, you're always going to face challenges, and how you face those is going to determine where you get and how quickly you're going to be able to get there, right? Because the faster you fail, the faster you're going to be able to succeed.
Yeah. Failures, you learn from them. Obviously, we know this, and you do have to go through them. You don't want to. Nobody does. Who wants to fail? It's not the best feeling, but you have to fail in order to see how strong mentally you are. Like how far can you go? How far are you willing to take this? I'll ask you, just a question. Like what was probably one of the moments where you felt that you were stuck, or you felt like is this possible? Like, can you maybe even with like drop shipping?
Yeah.
I want to ask you, like, when were there any moments specifically that, like, you're like, damn, like maybe this isn't for me. Like, can I really do this?
Yeah. I mean, my whole first year was 12-hour days where I was spending money and I wasn't making money. Yeah. And that's like most businesses. Yeah. Definitely most businesses. But that can also be other areas, right? Like if you're going to the gym, you can go to the gym every single day for 90 days and not see an ounce of results, and you get discouraged, right? But you have to know that, like I just said, you might not see it in 90 days, but you might see it in 180 days, 365 days. Yeah. It's the same thing in business, right? The first 6 to 8 months, I saw very, very little results. All I saw was my bank account balance going down. I didn't have much. I probably had like $8,000 saved from years, 5-10 years, shoveling snow, mowing grass, babysitting,
selling candy,
camp counseling, selling candy, like doing everything I possibly could, birthday money, this, that. Yeah. And all of that had saved up. I probably burned through a little over half of it before I probably even got my first couple of sales. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I got maybe 2,000 left of that 8,000, and I finally turned a profitable product. And through that one product, after maybe 10, 20, 30 product tests, I figured out 80% of the game. I figured out 80% of what's required to build a business. Maybe not 80%, but I figured out the most important 80%, right? Because I'd probably only knew 30% of what goes into building a business, but specifically an e-commerce business and the most important elements, I learned a majority of even what I know now through that. And so I could have threw in the towel after 6 months and be like, this shit's not working. Yeah. But I knew I was, the biggest thing is I was pulling 12-hour days, and I was absorbing content from people who were consistently killing it and showing the results and the screenshots and the screen recordings. So they weren't faked. And you're like, what is that kid doing that I can't? Right? Because I know I can outwork him. Mm-hmm. And if you can outwork them, and if you can acquire similar resources that they might have had getting started, because most people getting started in business, they don't have $100,000 handed to them, right? They maybe have $5,000. Definitely. If you can get your hands on $5,000, you can do what almost anyone in the world has accomplished, right? Even fucking Elon Musk, right? If you have $5,000, then you have enough to build a website. You have enough to film videos, to create promotional materials, and then raise money. Mm-hmm. You might not have the money. You might need a lot more, to do what it is that you want to do. But if you're passionate enough about it and you invest time and energy into it, You make a website, you try to get investors, then they might just be interested in what it is that you're building and help you out with it, but that all comes from, especially where, what I did building my businesses, that all came from periods of distress, periods of discomfort, periods where you didn't know whether you want to continue or not, and you just got to keep pushing through it and just knowing that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep, exactly.
No matter what.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to, being frustrated, part of my frustration personally in my content creation, journey, I guess, was realizing, and this is recent because, again, like I've been saying, I've been posting TikToks and, content all over all platforms, like I said before, but I've been posting TikToks for 80 days in a row, 3 at least minimum, right? And these are some are just for engagement, some of those, like those corny, low-key cringy videos that just get engagement, right? Because that's what you need at the end of the day, is engagement to bring eyeballs. Maybe it's not the best eyeballs, but those eyeballs bring good eyeballs, right? And then you build an audience from there. But I've decided to kind of pivot a little bit, because like I said, while I do post those videos, I still post bangers, like super underrated. If you haven't checked out my TikTok, I mean, go check it out. It's in the description. But like, I'll post dope clips. I've one of the first video on this channel is me going into the city and giving out shirts to the skate community in New York. Sick video, super underrated. Just a vibe. I mean, the kids were dope. They were doing tricks, and I was like, yo, if you do a cool trick, I'll give you a free tee. Maybe it's been done before, but like we put a unique twist to it. The way it was filmed, edited, all that. Check that out. I've been posting those as TikToks. I went out and gave out note cards to strangers. Just messages that really align with my brand and what I want to put out. I'm trying to be positive and put positivity out there, and just show how wearing Poseidon's workshop, you're putting something with a positive message on your chest, and being able to walk into the street, that means something, right? You have to be about, represent what you believe in, even outside, even when you're not thinking about it. People see that, even if it's not shouting at you through the shirt. It could be a design, but the deeper meaning is what's super important. And I've been posting that on TikTok too. But again, circling back to the point, I decided to pivot and just rebrand a little bit. On my TikTok account, I neglected speaking a lot. Like, a lot is just like trendy audios and kind of incorporating, ways to promote the brand that way. But I've been recently speaking and trying to provide as much value as I can, just so that you guys can get to know me on a deeper level. Something that is my goal on YouTube, at least for sure. I want you guys to know me. I have so many videos on the way, especially in the new year. Again, we're going to crush it in 2023. I'm so excited. But yeah, just knowing that you can pivot and rebrand, and it's okay. Again, part of it was maybe a failure. I had to adjust and figure something new, and that's what I'm doing now. So, that's something I've learned recently, which is super beneficial. But yeah, let's see. What else did we want to say? I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, again, so I guess, continuing that even a little bit, going with frustration. There's a lot of competition. Like I said, I'm one of many clothing brands, and I'm trying to find innovative ways to stand out. And, there's going to be competition. There's going to be levels of opposition. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not even doing this for the money. I mean, like, the money's great. Obviously, everybody loves money. I'm down for the money. But, there's a deeper level to it. And I just do want to, create something that stands out and actually has meaning beyond money. That's the goal. You just have to, if you really want it, you're not doing it for the money. If you're really passionate, you have to love what you do, and I do love what I do, and that's why I'm still doing it to this day. I mean, people might think I'm crazy for pushing on, but it's gonna be funny when that little business is making more than some people do in a month, right? And again, that's just how confident I am and in the brand and what I plan to do.